So while I was at work today, a thought actually dropped in my spirit. And what I heard was stop trying to fit in where you don't belong. And honestly, I was not even trying to come up with a content idea. I wasn't, you know, I was not even listening to anything. It wasn't like maybe I read something that triggered it or I heard something that triggered it. It just literally dropped in my spirit. And, you know, as it dropped in my spirit, the analogy that I got was just imagine that as grown up as I am right now, I'm not saying I'm an old woman, anyways, but as grown up as I am right now, imagine that I'm trying to fit into the dress that I used to wear when I was 5 years old or when I was 10 years old. I'm sure it's going to be very uncomfortable. As a matter of fact, I might not even be able to put it on. It might probably tear when I'm trying to put it on. Or if I am lucky enough for it to, if I'm lucky enough to be able to enter into the dress or squeeze myself into the dress, I'm sure I would never be comfortable. And I was just I was trying to search my spirit, and honestly, I believe that that is a stage that a lot of us are in right now. Us trying to feel fit into where we no longer belong. This time last year, I was in that space that I was so exhausted, like I was so overwhelmed. I was done. Like I was at the point of giving up on everything. And I mean everything. My business, my online courses, you know, I was at the point where I just wanted to settle. And this was what actually happened. I just got to a point where things just started stressing me out. Like I was feeling so stressed about so many things because I had so many thoughts that I was struggling with in my spirit. And, based on that dress analogy that I gave earlier on, imagine that I'm trying to fit into a dress that is no longer my size. I'm going to definitely struggle. I'm going to struggle. I'm going to stress myself. I might actually even get hurt, you know, somewhere along the line. And so, as I was saying, that last year, 2025, was really a big struggle for me. And I was burnt out. I was tired. I was just done. And, reflecting back right now, I believe that one of the reasons I was really overwhelmed and I was in that space of exhaustion was because I was trying to fit into what I had already outgrown. And that is the story of so many of us. That might actually even be your own story as you're watching this. Like, I had outgrown certain things, and despite the fact that deep down in my spirit, I knew that it was time to let go of certain things, but I struggled. You know how it can be, especially if you want to move from what you're already used to something that you're not so much familiar with. Like change is never comfortable for anyone. I remember when um my husband brought the idea of relocating to Canada. Honestly, at that time, I was not interested. I wasn't interested at all because I was in that space where my business was doing so well back home in Nigeria, and I just even opened a bakery worth millions of naira. And it just didn't make sense to let it all go and start a new life in Canada until I went on a retreat, and the Holy Spirit just kept hammering it in my spirit that it was time to move. Honestly, it wasn't an easy decision, but if you ask me, is it worth it right now? Honestly, I don't have a one-way answer to that, because I'm still evolving. I'm still trying to navigate, you know, the change that comes with changing my environment that I'm used to, where I grew up, not having access to my family like I used to. So I can't really say that, oh, it has paid off 100%. But when I look at certain aspects of my life, I realize that this change is actually good for me. And when you're in that space where you're beginning to struggle with something, that's the time for you to actually step aside and engage your spirit, because it might actually be time for you to move on. It might actually mean that you've outgrown certain things. And when I'm saying outgrowing things, it might be a job, it might be your career, it might be your business, it might be a relationship, it might even be a location, like a physical location. It could be anything. Honestly, it could be anything. But the moment we continue to struggle to fit in where we've already outgrown, we realize that our lives becomes more complicated, and then you become inconsistent, because today you're testing water. Oh, okay, let me try this. And you try this, it looks good, but then you're feeling like, what if it doesn't work out? Because I know that a lot of times why so many people would rather, squeeze themselves into something they've outgrown is because the unfamiliar is very scary. Honestly, I know that for sure. And as I was driving back from work, I was telling, so a couple of days before now, I was telling one of my girls that, oh, fear is not even my problem. Like, I'm not afraid. My only problem is I want to be sure I'm making the right decision. And as I was meditating on what I'm talking about right now, while I was driving from work, it just dawned on me that, girl, you are afraid. Stop saying you are not afraid. Stop saying that you just want to be sure. Because sometimes the reason a lot of us overthink things, the reason a lot of us are, doubting ourselves, self-sabotaging, is because we are just afraid. And it's normal to feel fear, especially if you are moving from the familiar to the unfamiliar. But one thing I want you to realize is that once you've outgrown a stage and you're just trying to force it, you are going to remain stagnant. You're not going to move forward. And I believe that nobody wants to remain in one place. Nobody wants to remain stagnant. Nobody wants to, just stay in one place and not progress. Yes, I believe that is the word. So if you notice certain patterns in your life, you feel like, oh, I think I've been stuck in this place for some time, or I think I'm not progressing. Well, you might actually need to search your spirit. Maybe it's time for you to just move. It's time for you to maybe change that job, maybe go into another business, maybe change that relationship, maybe change that circle of friends. Or maybe even pack your bags and, move from that city or that location that you are and move to somewhere else. Change is scary. Change is uncomfortable. Nobody likes change. Honestly, I don't like change. But looking back into my life, most of the times that, I was audacious enough to make the move to embrace change, it has always paid off for me. It might not be immediately, and I think that is the mistake a lot of us make. We are not patient enough to, experience the growth that we are in. So let's say, for instance, you just changed location, but you keep romanticizing about your previous location. You know how the children of Israel were in the Bible. while they were on the journey to the promised land, they kept romanticizing about Egypt, how they used to eat cucumber and all of those stuff. And come to think about it, for someone like me who comes from Nigeria, I'm like, for crying out loud. So it is cucumber that you people are missing. It's not even abula. It's not party jollof. But that's just on a lighter mode. But they kept romanticizing about Egypt, and their journey was prolonged. They couldn't make it into the promised land. It was not everybody that left Egypt that actually made it into the promised land, in case you don't know. And why was that? Because they kept romanticizing about Egypt. So, stop romanticizing about your old life. If God is leading you into a new life, if God is leading you into something new, embrace it. I know it's hard, but embrace it with faith. Embrace it knowing fully well that you are God's child. So even if you make certain decisions that you're not even sure of, God is so merciful that He would always redirect your path. That is one thing I always tell myself. Before now, I used to be very audacious. I used to be very bold. I used to be very courageous about taking decisions. Like, I tell you this idea right now, and the next minute I've already moved into it, and I've already started it. I know that sometimes it comes with growing up, because you get to a certain age and you feel like, oh, I don't want to take risk anymore. And this is not me saying that you should make decisions blindly, but like I said, you would also know it, you will feel it, because you just get to a point where you begin to feel so uncomfortable about your life. You just begin to feel a certain way that you've never felt before. You just begin to feel this burden, like, oh, I'm not feeling satisfied here anymore. I'm not finding fulfillment here anymore. And when you get to that point, please don't waste time. Move, because life is not waiting. Destiny is not waiting. And one thing I want you to realize is that so many destinies are attached to yours. So when you are not moving, some people would never move. So I believe that it would be very unfair to the other lives that are attached to yours that you don't actually make the move, if that makes sense. Like, you will be unfair to them, because if you are not moving, they would not move. And me even recording this video might be because there are some destinies that are attached to me that needs to see me also come into that era of reinventing myself, allowing myself to express my growth. Lately, I realized that the kind of things that I say, the kind of ideas that I have, is way beyond where I'm trying to fit in. And you know how God sometimes confirms some things to us, but we can be very adamant. I was going to start something a couple of months ago, and when I was going to start it, I wanted to give it a name. And when I told my husband was like, babe, I don't think you should give it this name, because I believe that you can do much more than the name you are giving it. And if you give it this certain name, it's going to give people a certain it's going to give people a certain perspective about what you're doing. So some people will feel like, oh, she's only talking about this, so I don't need to attach myself to her. Few months after, I was telling my husband, like, I feel like the kind of things that I say, the kind of things that I do right now, I believe that I've outgrown where I used to be. And he was like, yeah, I told you a couple of months ago, but you don't listen to me. You know how a prophet is not well respected in their own country or in their own place, in their own space, like how it was for Jesus too, right? So if you're in that space and you feel like, oh no, I'm struggling, I'm not progressing, I feel like I can do much more than I'm doing, then it's time for you to move. It's time for you to allow yourself to grow. Remember that scripture in the Bible about pouring the new into the old. Yeah, you're pouring the new wine into the old wineskin, and before you know it, the you won't be able to contain, you know, the new that you're supposed to express, because that old life can no longer sustain you. That old life can no longer hold you together. That old life can no longer, take you to where you desire to get to. For someone like me, I've always wanted to be an ordinary girl. Like, I've always wanted to just live an ordinary life. I just, be a babe, like, and there's nothing wrong about that. Like, I just wanted to be like my friends. Basically, that is what I'm saying. I wanted to be like my friends. Nobody, they are not thinking ministry. They are just living their lives, enjoying, going to parties, having boyfriends, and just doing all of those things. And even though I also explored some of those things, but deep down, I've always felt a very long time ago, like, there is more. Like, I am made for more than that. Like, I am made much more. I am made for much more than my peers. And sometimes that can be very, very scary, because for someone that wants to just be an ordinary girl, all of these thoughts come in. Like, I remember when I was in the university one day, we were at a concert, I believe, or a seminar. And in that seminar, my heart was just so heavy, and I was crying right there. Like, it was not even related to what was going on in the hall. But I just felt this burden, like, there is more to my life. And for someone, or for some of you watching this video right now, you know that there is more to your life than whatever it is you're doing. So stop trying to pour your new wine into the old wineskin, because your old wineskin cannot contain the new wine. Whew. Honestly, I didn't actually plan this. Like, I didn't even script this. Because it just came into my spirit. It just dropped in my spirit. And I believe that this is not just a message for me alone. I believe it is a message for me and for others. So stop trying to fit in where you don't belong. Stop trying to fit in where you don't belong. It's time for you to move. It's time for you to grow. I know you don't feel like you have the capacity to, move into the new life that you're being called into. But if you give yourself time, if you give yourself patience, if you give yourself grace, you will be amazed at your results in a couple of months, in a couple of years. Honestly, this was not planned, because just imagine that just about 2 days ago, before today, I was thinking to myself that I was going to take a break from social media. I was not going to post. I was just going to hand over everything to my virtual assistant and just go away for the next 1 month, because okay, I think I was thinking about it yesterday, and yesterday was exactly 1 month to my birthday. So I was like, oh, well, maybe it's time for me to reflect and, deal with all my fears and all the things I'm trying to struggle with in my spirit. But this coming up in my spirit today is definitely not a coincidence. Like, I feel like the answer that I'm looking for, I got it today. So maybe this message is actually just for me alone. Or maybe it's not for me alone. Maybe it's for all of us watching this right now. I believe that this is the answer I've been looking for. And so if you're in that space that you're still struggling, you're still trying to fit your adult body into your childhood dress, it's time to let it go. Yeah, it's time to let go. And don't be afraid of the new. Instead of, or let me put it this way. Even in the midst of your fear, do it afraid. That was one thing I learned from one of Joyce Meyer's book that I read. She said, do it afraid. So today I'm challenging you. Do it afraid. Do you need to change your job? But you are scared that nobody is going to employ you? Apply. And don't stop applying until you get a better one. Or maybe you've been feeling in your spirit that it's time for you to start a business or even change a business that you already have. It's time for you to allow yourself to explore that. And like I said, give yourself time. Give yourself time. You want to be consistent. Growth requires consistency. So give yourself time. Be consistent. And someone might actually be watching this. Someone might actually be watching this right now. And you know that you no longer belong with those circle of friends that you keep. Well, it's time for you to let go. And I know I'm saying this as someone who can be very emotionally attached to people. Honestly, I don't have a lot of people. Don't let me say I don't have a lot of people in my circle, but in my personal space, I don't have a lot of people. So sometimes when someone that I used to be close to is drifting away or our relationship is drifting apart, it used to be very hard for me. So even me saying this is for me as well. When I'm emotionally attached to someone, it can be really hard for me to let go. But you know, one of the things that God has been teaching me lately is that it is not all relationships that are meant to last forever. So you might be in a certain relationship right now and you feeling it deep down. You know it's deep down that it's time to let go of those relationships. And the more you keep holding on to it, you know, just imagine that you close your fist tightly. Yes, you will be able to keep whatever is in it, but you won't be able to receive anything else until you open it up. So open yourself up to growth. Open yourself up to opportunities. Open yourself up to new relationships. Open yourself up to relocating. Open yourself up to moving from one place to another. Yes. Because at the end of the day, it's all about fulfillment. It's all about finding fulfillment and fulfilling purpose. And at the end of the day, you don't want to look back a couple of years from now and realize that, oh, I could have been this, or my life could have been better than this if only I made the bold move. Ooh, I think I've said enough. And I'm not going to edit this video actually. So if you watched until the end, thank you for watching. My name is Lanike Awoleke, by the way. And if this is your first time watching this channel, I hope you would come back. And honestly, I hope I would also come back. And if you feel this has actually blessed you in any way, if this has helped you in any way, do like, comment, and share with someone else. Until I see you again in another video, take care of yourself and stop trying to fit into where you do not belong.